Hello everyone, I'm Irma Baker. Welcome to our show. We have a wonderful guest that has just some fascinating information and personal experiences that she's going to share with us today. She's a local author, and she is also someone who is very much involved in the paranormal. So, welcome to Amanda Yule.
Thanks.
I'm so glad to have you with us today. And I don't even know how to describe you. You're an author, but you write paranormal into your books. How would you describe yourself?
Well, I like to describe myself as that I write romantic suspense with a paranormal twist. And I say that because a lot of times when you read paranormal romance, it will feature, vampires or shapeshifters or fantasy characters. But my books really are very contemporary, and a lot of readers say, could that really happen? Is there really a cognitive mind unit in the government? And, it deals with more psychic abilities and abilities that many people claim people have. So they seem more realistic, I think.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned it that way, because when I was reading your newest book, and my gosh, that's, title's escaping me now. The
Healing
Kiss, yes, Healing Kiss. I'm thinking Dark Waves, Cross Waves, the previous ones, but Healing Kiss. I have to say that's exactly what was going through my head. Could this be real? Could something like that really be happening? So, but your experience with the paranormal, this is something that's been with you all your life, right?
That is true. From the time that I was maybe 4 or 5, I recall having, what I call unusual experiences. And for me, I did not, you know nothing at 4 or 5, you don't know about the paranormal. I just assumed that they were regular things that other people experienced. And probably one of the first experiences that I recall is being a little child. And I grew up in a Victorian home. It was like over 100 years old when I was a child. And I recall being in the backyard, and for whatever reason, as a kid, I yelled out, "I want to see a ghost." And this flying saucer object came from the top of the house spinning, like lighted up and spinning, and it zipped by my nose. And my older brother was out in the yard with me, and I said, "Did you see that? It's a UFO." And he was running ahead and didn't see it. But I always talked about it for years as the time I saw a UFO. And it wasn't until I was much older, maybe in high school or college, that I read about ghost orbs. And it just all of a sudden came to me that, oh my gosh, that was a ghost. That was not a UFO as I thought, because I assumed it was a UFO because it was spinning and it was bright and it was sort of flat. It didn't have, it didn't look like anything I'd ever seen before. And I really believe now, in retrospect, that I said, "I want to see a ghost," and a ghost said, "Boo." It went right by my nose and thought it was funny. A ghost from the house. It came from the house, the attic of the house.
So you believe that the house that you grew up in, that it was haunted?
I believe there were spirits there. I think many older homes have that just years of people living there. And others in the family claim that they saw things. Now, I never saw anything other than that experience. I never saw physically anything, but strange things happened in the house. Doors opened and closed and nobody came out. Lights would go off and on sometimes and nobody was near the light switch. I once had a glass explode in the cupboard. When I went and put a glass down, it just completely exploded in the cupboard. And I never thought much about it. That would happen fairly frequently when I was doing dishes or whatever. But then later I read about that as a phenomenon. So yeah, unusual things did happen in the house. And if you see the house, and I think I have some pictures to share, you would believe that there are ghosts in the house.
Well, you also come from a very big family. You have 13 brothers and sisters. Did you
14.
ever? 14. I always miss one somewhere along the line. You have 14 brothers and sisters. Did you ever think that maybe they were playing tricks on you?
Oh yeah, so I'll tell this little story. So my sister and I shared, we had a double bed and we shared, I'm a big family, so there were actually 4 of us that shared a room, but I'm at the end, so I'm number 14 and my sister was 15. And we were made to sleep in, go to bed early than everybody else. So we're lying in bed and I would get kind of scared. I would feel the scared feeling because it was dark and you could hear the noises from downstairs, and I could look out in the hall, and there was a door out in the hall facing another bedroom, and I saw the door open and close and open and close and open and close. Somebody opened, but nobody came out, and you couldn't see a hand or anything. And my younger sister, reminds me of this to this day, because she said it's a ghost, and I didn't want to believe it. And I thought that somebody was playing tricks, but nobody ever confessed to anything. Everybody acted like they didn't know the next day that happened. So
your younger sister saw the door open and close as well?
Yes, 2 of us saw. 2 of us observed the ghostly phenomenon. But again, I think as a child, I wouldn't go there. I didn't want to believe that because it was too scary to contemplate that. Mm-hmm. So I just ignored those experiences. And it wasn't until I was, about 6 or 7, I stayed with my older sister. She was married, and I went to stay with her one summer, and I discovered a deck of tarot cards in a drawer. And I asked her what they were, and she said they can predict the future. And so I took the tarot cards and she gave them to me. And I found I had a knack as a child for doing tarot cards. So that's kind of how it started for me.
Well, you brought a deck of tarot cards
I did bring a deck of tarot cards. These are very old deck of tarot cards. But yes, this is what they look like for anybody that's not familiar with these. They look like this. And there's all sorts of different, they look like a regular deck of cards. Mm-hmm. So that's how it started for me. I have since learned that things like tarot cards, Ouija boards, crystal balls, anything that's a physical thing, a palm and palm reading, they are really just tools to focus. They actually kind of allow that to come to the surface, that ability, that what you would call a paranormal ability or a psychic ability. They're a focus point. And so I used to play games. I used to do a lot of things that, to me, they were just games I was playing. I wasn't taking them very seriously, even the tarot cards. But I would play a game where I would look into a mirror. And if you gaze into a mirror long enough and just your eyes don't move, you start to, the reflection shifts and changes, and it looks rather frightening after a while, or something changes about it. I didn't realize until a long time later that that's what crystal ball gazing is. When you see that with somebody trying to tell the future, they have a crystal ball and they're looking into it. That's what it is. It's, again, just a focal point. And so, it started as games for me. But what happened is it sharpened that ability for me. And then over time, I don't need the crystal ball. I don't need the tarot cards. Anything can be a focal point. I don't need that anymore. So it's very easy for me to tap into that side of my of this ability, which I call my hidden talent. And I call it my hidden talent because I really don't do anything with it. It is actually a very powerful gift, is how I think of it, but I don't really use it on a regular basis. I really don't want to know the future. I don't think there's a lot of usefulness that we get from that. But what I have learned to do is channel that into my novels. So that's why my novels have a very realistic feeling to them, because many of the experiences that I've actually had, you wouldn't believe it. You're reading it thinking it's fiction, but they're real life experiences that I've had.
So when you are writing your novels, and your novels do have the paranormal, not all of them, you write a variety of fiction, and professionally, you've been a writer of nonfiction. So when you are writing your novels that have the paranormal in them, you're drawing on your experience of what you've called your hidden talent or your secret talent.
That's true. Yes. Writers write what they know, as they say, and what I know is I've had all of these types of experiences, many unusual experiences, things that I didn't even really understand, as I described earlier, seeing the flying saucer, until later. Another experience that I had was in about 7th or 8th grade. My eyes weren't very good, and I noticed in school that I was seeing lights around the teachers or anybody that was in front of me speaking. And this went on for quite some time. I just thought I had bad eyes, and I got glasses. But after I got glasses, I still saw the lights, and I still see them to this day. I can be in a setting like this talking to you, and all of a sudden I just notice it. And it shifts and changes, and I don't know what that is really, but I read about then after I experienced that in 7th or 8th grade. When I was in college, I read about auras, and I said, oh, I've been seeing those forever. I didn't know that's what it was, I didn't know there was a name for it. And I experimented with those because I thought, why do I see that? And I thought, maybe I should play with that. Is there anything I can do? Can I make that increase? Can I change? Does it change color? And so what I've learned is, no, I can't do anything with that. All that is tells me the energy is up in a room. And a lot of my books deal with energy. That's what you'll find. It's a common theme. Everything has energy. I think when you're tuning into the paranormal, you're actually tuning into energy, whether it's there visibly in front of you, or whether it's something from another realm, or maybe it's remnants left over from when somebody was living. I'm not really sure. I don't know. But I do believe that that's what it is. And so that for me, that tells me the energy's up in a room. Amanda, tune into this. You could, if I wanted to, you can, use that energy then to be able to really get information.
And how have you worked this into your novels? You've won many, many awards for your novels. They are available online through Amazon and other providers. But how did you start working this? You didn't start out to be a writer.
No, I did not start. I never wanted to be a writer. Writing is a lot of work, and I didn't want to work that hard. I wanted to be an actress. I went to school for theater. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Theater from Kent State, and that's what I originally went for. But it's interesting. But I was always a good writer. I always did well in school. I actually won a few contests and different things in school for writing. So I always kind of knew it was a skill of mine, and that kind of came out in the work world. So my first job, one of my early jobs, I worked as an assistant in an advertising department. And very quickly that became noticeable that I was good with the writing, and I started to realize that I needed to turn my attention to that. So then for years I worked in the corporate world in a writing capacity. Writing everything from newsletter articles to press releases to organizational emails and announcements and marketing brochures. And then it wasn't until much later, though, that I decided to write fiction. I really had a very creative, burning desire that I suppressed because it just seemed like too hard. And I had to sort of trick myself to actually write a novel because I didn't think, I lacked confidence, honestly, and I did not think I was capable of doing that. But I came to a moment of life where I realized that I needed to explore this. And so the way I did it is I said, I'm going to treat it like exercise. I don't love to exercise either, but it's really good for me. If I do a little bit every day, it's not so overwhelming. Same is true for writing. I do a little bit every day. It's good for me. The more you do it, the better you get. And so my books kind of came out of that idea of, let's just put every expectation aside. Let's just try to write something, see if I can. And I successfully got to the end of a manuscript, and I realized I can do this. And then, honestly, it's a art and a craft, and like any kind of art or craft, you have to put a lot of time and energy into perfecting and to increasing your skills. And so I did that. I've studied under really talented editors. I've actually done what's called an immersion with an editor. Her name is Margie Lawson, excellent. And I spent 5 days, took 5 days off of work, and just you go through this intensive experience of learning things that you may not have learned in school about the English language and how to write. I've entered contests. I enter contests for, I actually started doing that because they're judged and you get criticism. So you can then learn to then take that and figure out what in your writing that you need to do to perfect it. So I have learned absolutely so much about writing over the period of time that I've been writing, which is about 8 years now, about how to write and how to draw the reader in. And fiction is very different than writing nonfiction or writing something for corporate America. So I have learned a ton.
Well, it just seems like you have managed to organize your life in such a way that you can fit all these different areas into it. And besides that, you're married and you have 3 kids.
Yes, I am married. I have 3 children. They're adult children now for the most part. My youngest is a senior in college. So I do have more time now than I've ever had. But yes, I do all my writing on my iPad. And I would take my iPad to swim meets. My children were in swimming, and I would write there. I guess you could call it a blessing and a curse, but something that I have that has helped me in my writing is I can focus very easily amongst a lot of conversation and a lot of people. And that's because I was raised with 14 brothers and sisters, so I am used to that, kind of pandemonium around me. And so I'm very focused, and I also make very good use of time. So any little chunk of time that I have, I used to spend it reading. Now I spend it writing, and I focus. I'm always a little bit every day is my motto with writing. I never go a day without writing if I can help it, or doing something towards writing.
I think that's wonderful advice for anyone who's viewing this and thinking, well, I've always wanted to write. Sounds like you've outlined just the plan that can get somebody started and keep somebody going.
Yeah, and I would say a tip for anybody listening that likes to write is to join a writers group. That's something I did, and there's a wonderful writers group in Cleveland called the Great Lakes Fiction Writers. It's a local group, and they're all writers at every stage of their career. So you can join that group, and you will get just a ton of good information about writing. And that's what I did too. I joined a local writing group, and that really helped me understand the business side of writing, and also gave me opportunities that I might not have had, like pitching editors or publishers, how to get an agent, that sort of thing.
And tell us a little bit about the paranormal, it's romantic suspense with a paranormal twist. I think that's the way you described it. Tell us a little bit about those.
Yeah, so I have a series called the Mind Hacker series. It's 3 books starting with Mind Waves. That was my debut novel. And then I have Crosswaves and Dark Waves. And that series, I worked in a cybersecurity department at the time that I wrote that. So I took my knowledge of hackers and how that is happening in the real world and combined that with my knowledge of the paranormal. And so the premise of that story is that the hackers are able to go and infiltrate your mind, and they're actually employed by the Cognitive Mind Unit in the U.S. government, and they guard the nation's intellectual property. So if the brightest minds, they have to guard those minds from hackers from other countries that also have these paranormal abilities and can go in and change thoughts or steal, basically, ideas. So, you know, I took something that's like kind of happening in the real world and then brought it into sort of the paranormal realm. So that's that series. And then
Well, let me get back there just in case anybody's wondering. You created that government agency, didn't you, as far as you know?
I created it is all fiction, but I will say I get a lot of Google alerts about mind hacking and, you know, that sort of thing. And there is a lot being done in the real world with technology to read brain waves, to be able to read thoughts. It's possible now. It's kind of scary, but mine was totally fictional and really was meant, I was using my whole paranormal background to kind of bring that to life. So people that read the series, you know, there are some very fantastical things in the books, but they believe, you know, they tell me they're asking me if any of it is true or real. So I think there is a very realistic tone to the books.
And then your current book that's out is Healing Kiss. And that's also involving the mind and the paranormal, but in a different way.
Yeah, so that story features a nurse with the ability to heal, and she does it by absorbing energy that people naturally give off, those that she's around. And when she gets enough in her tank, basically, or where she fills up with this energy, she can potentially heal others. Some people she can heal very easily because of their body chemistry. Other people it's a little more difficult or challenging, or she can make feel a little bit better, but she really can't heal. It's not an exact science, just like the psychic paranormal stuff is not an exact science. And the storyline is, because it's a romance, is that the hero in the story is what you call a burner. He gives off an incredible amount of energy. He's a very rare phenomenon that some people have this. And so she needs him because her sister, who's empathic and gets sick very easily, is actually in the hospital and she's near death. And the only way that the heroine can save her sister is by absorbing enough energy, and she needs this burner, the hero, to do that. And he's a stranger. So that makes for a good romance, right?
It certainly does make for a good romance. And I have to tell you, reading Healing Kiss, it is one of those books where it's like, I know it's late at night, but just one more page, just one more page, just one more page. And I really literally couldn't put it down. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. But you do something else that kind of, when you were talking about the crystal balls and the reflection and how that, it's more of a prop than anything. It made me think of the other thing that you are so involved in, and that's beach glass. And we just have a couple minutes left, so tell us a little bit about your interest in beach glass, because that's certainly someone here with the lakes and the big lake and the rivers and all that we have. Beach glass, you find beach glass around here, don't you? I
do. So that started about, 10 years ago when my husband bought a jet ski. And so we began taking the jet ski out on the lake. And I very quickly at Edgewater Park in Cleveland, which is downtown, discovered my first piece of beach glass, which is basically glass that has been out in the Lake Erie, and then has been washed so much that it becomes very smooth and polished. And then it washes up on shore. And it's really pretty, and you can find all sorts of pieces, and there are beach glass groups you can join on like Facebook, and there's a lot of history behind some of the pieces that you'll find. They can be, I found marbles that are over 100 years old, and I'm told there was a marble factory at one time in Cleveland, so it's interesting. And so we go places that now to find the glass, you almost have to go to little spots in Lake Erie where others can't really get to it except by boat or jet ski, and that's how I find a lot of the glass. So it does something for me. It's very relaxing. I enjoy looking for it. I can spend hours just looking for this glass, and actually that's what inspired my very first book. I was alone on the beach, and I wondered, I got a creepy feeling, and I said, what if somebody were watching me? I'm all by myself. My husband was out on the jet ski. There were a bunch of houses like overlooking where I was, and then my writer brain just kind of took off. I thought, what if somebody were watching you and they could read your mind and you had no idea? And then, because I'm into the romance, what if somebody were watching you and they could read your mind and they fell in love with you and you had no idea? What would happen next? And a lot of my writing always starts with that question, some question, the prompt, the whole story. And so that's what inspired that debut novel.
And which book was that?
That's Mind Waves.
Mind Waves.
Yes, Mind Waves.
And that's the first in the Mind Hackers series.
Yes.
Now, if people want to know more about you or get information about your books and that, do you have a website?
I do. It's www.amandayuhl.com. Okay,
so then people can kind of keep up with you right there. And what are you working on now?
Well, I have an agent, and the agent has asked for a romantic comedy. So I have just completed and just turned in my romantic comedy. It's called Date with Destiny. And it's about a plant expert, and the hero is a botanist. So a little unusual, but I just turned that in, and that's what I've just finished. So now I'm going to turn my attention back to the paranormal and write the sequel to Healing Kiss.
Well, Amanda, it has been wonderful having you on, and give us again that website.
www.amandayuhl.com.
And also, I would like to remind everyone out there that our shows are on YouTube, or if you didn't know, I'm telling you right now, you can find all our programs on YouTube. So if you would like to refer back to this or get any information about our shows, just check there. And Amanda, it has been wonderful having you with us. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for tuning in today to RSVP. For RSVP, I'm Irma Baker.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.